cats and kittens, this is Lex and welcome to the Crochet Fiberist. This is episode 5A and this is a continuation of our Rediscovered Stitches class. I hope you've been keeping abreast of that. The first episode was done, I want to say, last Saturday. So this is just kind of a continuation. I mentioned in the last episode that what we were going to be working on is we're going to be working on Trinity Stitch in the round, and I've got kind of a cute little idea at the end for you. So let's get started. For this class and for this particular exercise, you're going to need a sport to worsted weight yarn. Most easily accessible yarn is about the worsted weight. I've just picked up some white yarn, and the hook size that I would normally use is an H or a G. Sorry, not an H or a G, like an H or an I. But for the purposes of this experiment, and because we are working with, we're just starting this whole process, I want you guys to consider maybe using a J. I like using J's, and it's really easy to see your stitch. I would not use a variegated yarn unless you feel really comfortable with maybe the last lesson and you did some practice, because what I don't want you to do is get really confused as we, and I don't want you to be in a situation where you can't see your stitches, because working in the round is a smidge different than working back and forth. And as we talked in the first lesson, I discussed the Trinity Stitch. I showed you some pictures. Please take a look at that episode. But now we're going to try to do something a little bit different and work Trinity Stitch in the round. So here's how we start. Slip knot, hook, they combine, right? And for this process, now there's a lot of ways you can start your project. Last episode I did a foundation chain. This episode I'm going to do a foundation chain as well. I don't really remember if we went over a foundation chain. I think we did, but we can do that again. So here's what we're going to do. Like you normally do with crochet, you yarn over, chain, yarn over, chain. You have 2 loops here, see? And what you're going to do is yarn over, and then you're going to insert your hook into the second loop, okay? And then we're going to yarn over, pull through that loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. This W, or lotus, you pull through all 3 of these loops, like so. Now, that is your first stitch in a foundation chain. And that's actually, you're creating a first row as well. So how do you build on this? I'm going to take it off and let you see what's going on here. Do you see that? Do you see that? Where you need to go, and when you're creating your foundation chain, you are going to need to be going through between the last 2 loops. So I've got this loop right here, I hope you can see that, and this loop right here. And I want you to yarn over and stick your hook through between those 2 stitches. Okay? And if it's done right, you're going to be, this is going to be facing you. Sorry. You will see that you're going through 2 stitches. You will see a stitch created right there. So I'm going to yarn over again, pull through that, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through that chain. So I want you to do 19 chains of this foundation chain. So I'm going to do that, and you do it, and we'll meet back when we're done. Okay? Again, if you're really confused, go back to the first episode, because I think I was pretty clear on how to start that process. like I said, using a J-hook, your stitches are a lot looser and it's easier to insert your hook in places that you wouldn't normally insert your hook in your process. So just keep that in the back of your mind. It's a pretty easy process, though by no means perfect. And why did I decide on 19 stitches? Well, if you remember in the last episode that the Trinity stitch works in multiples of 2 stitches, and then you add 3 stitches on the foundation chain. So we're talking about 16 stitches and then 3 extra stitches, which brings you up to 19. So here we go. Now that works no matter how many, whatever permutation you work of the 2 plus 3 multiple. But I figured this was a big enough option. So here we go. I'm done. Let me count so I don't get you guys confused. But when you get there, just you're ready for the next step. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 actually. 18, 19. So here we are at 19 stitches. Now, we've just made essentially the first row of this project. It's a chunkier row. It's a chunkier edge, but there are some positives to this. And I'll talk about that later as we get into different stitches. But so we have 19 stitches. Now, how do we create a join? I see hands. I see that hand over there. I see that hand over there. Here's the right answer to that. You join these 2 edges with the elusive slip stitch. Now, you have to be very careful to join so you do not create a twist. There are reasons why you want twists. There is a project that I could introduce later that will have a twist. But for our purposes now, just fold your little tube in half so all the U shapes are facing each other. I hope you can see that. And then take your hook and slip it through. You're not really yarning over, you're just inserting your hook through the first stitch of the other side. Yarn over and pull through all loops, okay? And now you are officially at that moment joined, okay? So what do we do next? We are going to make a half double crochet on the first row. So have a look. This is the first stitch. So in your first stitch, you yarn over, you insert your hook, yarn over, pull through. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3, right? That is a standard half double crochet. What do we do next? I think you remember what we do next. We go to our next stitch and we insert our hook, yarn over, pull our loop through. We are not closing this stitch, as we remember last time. You yarn over, or you insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through a loop, and you do that one more time. So now we have 4 stitches, or 4 loops. We now have 4 loops on our hook. And at this point, we yarn over and pull through all 4 loops, okay? And then we chain. And we're going to repeat this process all the way around. So let's work on that. Let me try this again so you can see, because the trick starts at this state. You see where let me see if I can show you. Do you see that the leg the leg of this Trinity stitch is made in the last stitch. Yes, I hope you do. So when you start your next Trinity stitch, you start it in the last stitch from the last Trinity stitch. So we're going to yarn over, pull through, and have two chains on the hook, insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, insert through next stitch, yarn over, pull through 3, and then yarn over and pull through all 4. And then remember to chain, and we're going to repeat that process all the way around this loop. So let's work on that, and when we get to the end of that, we will see what happens next. So I'm showing you this in real time so you don't think I just automatically just worked it. This is really, really peaceful. I like this particular pattern because it feels nice. And what you're going to find very, very quickly is that when you get to the end of the row, but I will let you get there, or end of the round, since we are now working in the round moving forward, you're going to notice something a little weird. But we have thought about that, so it will be fine. So I got to the end of my stitches, and I've got one more stitch than the repeat can sustain, or I don't, yeah. So what do? I just do a simple I just do a simple half double in the last stitch, and then to join the round, I create a slip stitch on the first stitch of that round. Hopefully you can see that. Slip stitch around, and that is the end of your round. Now let me tie this off so you can see how this looks. So this is all joined in the round now. You'll notice that it has a little bit of stretch, but not a whole lot. I have sometimes used this Trinity stitch for a ribbing-like aesthetic, and it really does pull in. So that's something you want to keep in mind. So we're done with the first round, which is pretty awesome, right? So what are we going to do next? I know in the first episode, what we did next was work 2 single crochets in each on the sides of each of the Trinity stitches. We're not going to do that. We are going to build another set of Trinity stitches. So this is something you want to keep in mind. So we're on the first row, we're on the first stitch. A lot of people sometimes chain on this, and they don't do like their first stitch on the very first stitch. But this is a personal preference. If you don't do it this way, you'll have to add another stitch. But what I do is I just put my first stitch right there. So I'm yarning over, inserting through the first stitch, yarn over, pull through. There are 3 loops on my hook, pull through all 3 loops, and we've started. Now, for how do we construct our next Trinity stitch? It's easy. You follow the loops. There are 3 loops staring at you. You are looking at your Trinity stitch. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to insert our hook through the first loop, yarn over, pull through 1. You'll notice the second loop is kind of small and a little tight. That is why I asked you to use a bigger hook, so that you can more easily manipulate your fingers into it. So going to insert your hook through that one. That's always a little fiddly. Yarn over and pull. Wow, I'm showing you that it's not so easy. Yarn over and pull through. So you have that loop. So currently we have 3 loops. and now we're going to insert into the last stitch, yarn over and pull through. And we have 3 stitches on the hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through all 4 stitches, okay? And then we're going to do a chain. And that is literally all you need to do moving forward. Now, you know what you do on that second stitch. That second stitch, or the second repeat, is going to start on the same stitch as the end of your first repeat. So in that same stitch, it's very important that you keep that in mind. The exact same stitch, you yarn over, or you insert the hook, yarn over, pull through 1 stitch. You've got that middle stitch that's kind of hinky. You insert your hook through that stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then you're going to insert your hook, yarn over, and pull through a stitch. You got 4 hooks or full stitches in your, you have 4 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through all 4, chain 1, and we're going to repeat that process again. So I really should insert music. I don't know if I will this time. I'm using Windows Media or Movie Maker or something, and it's really, really quite cool, but I don't know if I've quite the ability to do this yet. But just kind of follow that pattern. As you start working this pattern, you will start seeing the pattern in your head, and it will make so much sense. And when I'm done with this row, I think for homework, I would really urge you to do 4 or 5 rows of this. And as a special project, what I think we should all get together and do is kind of a cowl, like a cowl you can put around your neck, using about 33 stitches. So foundation half double crochet, chain 33 stitches, join. Oh wait, before I get there, at your very last 3 stitches, you will notice that you do not have enough. You'll probably notice that you don't have enough spaces to do your final Trinity stitch. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to insert, like you normally do, in the last stitch of your last pattern for your first stitch. Yarn over through for your second one, and then what I like to do, and not everybody likes to do this, but there's this place where you made your slip stitch, and normally they will tell you not to go into it. For the purposes of this project, I go into it. So I yarn over, or I insert my hook through that little space, yarn over, pull through. I've got 4 loops, yarn over, pull through all 4, and then you create a half double crochet in that same stitch, okay? And then you join, like we talked about the slip stitch. And I would like to see, if you're interested, do 4 or 5 different rounds, change colors, see how you like that. In our next episode, I think we're going to do a little project together, and we're going to use this pattern, and we're just going to use a much bigger, a much more interesting yarn maybe. So next week, come back, be ready, get a favorite skein of yarn or a ball of yarn. I am actually going to be using Lion Brand Scarfie because I love that yarn. I am not a yarn snob. I love whatever I can get my hands on. So, so I'm going to come back with a half skein of Lion Brand Scarfie, and I will come back with a J or K hook, and we will sit down and do ourselves a little cowl together, and that'll probably be a good 20 minutes. And yeah, I think what I might do is try to do that, do it like a live cam experience, but that will depend on life, and I will mention that in my episode on Tuesday. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope you go forth and prosper in that lesson. I will show you some different projects that I have constructed using that stitch, and then we can kind of move on. I'm really, really excited. I'm glad you're here with me, and I hope to see you for the next episode of Rediscovered Stitches. Bye.